Good morning, everyone. We just received some very disturbing news from Washington that the Supreme Court of the United States of America has stripped away the state of New York's right and responsibility to protect its citizens, which is frightful in its scope of how they are setting back this nation and our ability to protect our citizens back to the days of the founding fathers. And the language we're reading is shocking.
There's a black man being shot or wounded every 12 minutes in America. And I'm raising 3 more black boys. So I dedicated my entire life because I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna speak, I'm gonna march, I'm gonna rally, I'm gonna get on my neighbors' nerves. Everybody knows me as the gun violence prevention lady, but that's the type of dedication that it's gonna take for us to bring back our community, because we are going to save us.
Good afternoon. As you well know, you're watching 30 Frames a Second. And once again, I am blessed to have my co-host with me, Charlene Holmes of imanaborenainc, the company she founded. What do you think about what's going on, the whole issue of violence and guns? Give us some perspective.
You know, Nat, I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I'm going to, just for the sake of us being on one accord, I'm going to talk about this piece. At 2 separate times in our country within a week of each other, we saw young people under the age of 21 be able to walk into a store, buy an AR-15 for the purposes of mass murder. That is a larger issue here. And I feel like we are in a reactive space in this country where we want to blame. Let's blame the NRA, let's blame gun control, let's blame gun laws. But our young people are walking into stores, buying guns to commit mass murder. And I have not seen a headline yet addressing that issue. And these are young people who were on opposite sides of the country. So we can't even say it's like a regional thing or, you know, it's a race thing or a gender thing. At this point, it looks like our young people are suffering. We as adults, and I know this might trigger some people, but it looks like we as adults are failing our young people. We're failing them if they're depressed and they're willing to murder to get attention. Now, I understand that each case is very different in terms of why they did it, but they're still young and they still walked into stores and were able to purchase military machine guns to commit murder, mass murder.
Well, there are a whole lot of factors that you have to look at. First of all, this is an entirely different world than the one I grew up in. Mm-hmm. We had no concept of high caliber magazines. If you wanted to shoot somebody, you either had a revolver or a Derringer. You did not have the capacity to shoot massive numbers of people. And a high-level magazine means that you have the capacity to load more bullets in. There are magazines that you could load more bullets in than the designer of the machine gun itself figured out for you in the first place. Mm-hmm. The magazines of the AR-47s, I think, holds 30 rounds, and you can now have access to magazines that hold more than 30 rounds. There was no concept of shooting this many people.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the only people who knew anything about military weapons were guys who went to Vietnam. Now, not only do you have access to military weapons, but you also have an internet that constantly pumps the love of violence for money. Mm-hmm. Eric Adams was talking about a thing called drill rap. Yeah. And drill rap is actually a social media phenomenon. Some of the more violent and obscure videos of drill rap have in excess of, according to the news media, 20 million followers. It is impossible for a Black artist to get 20 million views on a video unless a whole lot of white people are clicking on that video. Mm-hmm. And you either need algorithms pushing the thumbnails your way, or you need bots to lie to the algorithms to get them to push the thumbnails your way so that you can even see it. You're talking about an audience of billions.
Yes. I'll give two examples of how I try to address this. I think we as adults need to understand what our young people or what people are ingesting on a daily basis. And we have to take the control to push back against what the algorithms want us to ingest. Like there is a Netflix documentary that it's called The Social Dilemma. And I recommend that anyone watches this, where they actually expose that you are an avatar in a universe, and they even calculate how long you stay on something in your feed. And then they use that to then provide you with similar imagery so that you're more likely to click on it and more likely to buy and follow. So knowing that, having that knowledge kind of provides you with leverage where you can push back on this. So I'm going to say this. My first story is that I have a 6-year-old nephew. He's super intelligent. For anybody out there, you guys, the young ones, I mean, they catch on fast. You can have intelligent conversations with them and like intellectual intelligence. That's what I mean. So I'm talking to him about countries and their size. And I mean, obviously I'm a little tainted. I'm older. Size on the map is not necessarily the size of a country. It depends on who made the map and what lens it was made in, and all these nuances that I can't tell a 6-year-old. But I said to my little nephew, he's like, I went on YouTube and I know it's true because, and I said, all right, little one, let me explain something to you. You have to do additional research when you're looking up things, right? People put information out there that is not always true. And he was like, why would they do that? Right? Such an innocent kid. Why would they do that? And I had to have a conversation with the 6-year-old. Obviously, I spoke to him in a 6-year-old language about people putting things out there that they believe, but did not actually go ahead and do additional research to make it fact. Also, we have theoretical practices that have not been proven as of yet, and people are still navigating and operating in that way. So I say all of that to say, when I combat these types of ideologies or this type of mentality with our youngins, given that my scope is with young people, I work in higher education, I try to get that information to them. If you have the more information you have, the more access to information you have, the better decision you make. So if a young person is telling me, Miss Shaw, I really love this drill music, I'll perhaps take a clip from Cardi B saying that while she makes drill music, it entices a spirit in her that's very violent, that she doesn't want to go back to. And I will make a correlation and say someone making this type of music is telling you that it evokes spirits in them that makes them violent. The person making the music said this. So you think you wouldn't be subject to that violence as well? So these are the ways that I believe that we can combat it, is one person at a time, because the machine itself is too large and vast for us to make some type of one way, one answer for everything. We really need to sit down with people and kind of wake them up. Red or blue pill. Which one do you want? Choose. Either you choose, to say to yourself, okay, I know when I'm scrolling through my feed, there's an algorithm that is making this happen, that I'm an avatar in some marketing land and they want to market to me, and this is all about money. And so I need to do my due diligence and make sure that this is correct information, that I'm only ingesting what I believe is positive. You are what you eat and you are what you ingest, period. So really just being explicit and honest and giving people the truth, I feel, is the only way for us to do it. I take that back. Not the only way for us to do it, one way for us to do it. It's a hard thing. And I don't have all the answers, Nat, but I know that our young people and our generation are exposed to high violence. I was exposed to high violence as a kid. I played video games. I listened to rap music. I listened to hip hop. I was from the city. They call it the concrete jungle. We were exposed to these types of things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to define how you navigate life. You have to be able to separate. And some people are just not separating that. They're allowing for it to permeate into their everyday lives. And that is very scary. And really quickly, just to talk about like gun laws and bringing the violence back, just bringing the conversation back to what we initially were talking about. A lot of our politicians have come out and blame rap music and blame, social media, and blame. Everybody wants to place the blame on things instead of taking accountability for our own actions. If I'm a politician, if I'm someone who has high influence, a high sphere of influence, what am I doing in my sphere to ensure that I'm not participating in this and I'm not operating in this way, and I'm trying to combat it? Just blaming it on rap music and social media, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's good enough. And I hope I'm ruffling a little feathers, I feel, but I don't think that's good enough to blame it on social media and rap music. I think we have a larger issue as a country where we are very reactive instead of being proactive. And now we're starting to see more and more, that America has a serious problem, but we're not too far gone to fix it. We just have to be real with ourselves. Mhm.
I blame the technology that they are using to access everyone's data and put it out at a minute's notice.
Yeah.
Like if I go on Amazon and order some underwear, 5 minutes after I go to YouTube, there are thumbnails selling me drawers.
Wait, that it gets even better. You'll be talking about it in the kitchen with your family. Your phone is in the next room. And then you go on your phone and it's there. They're even listening on the phone.
That is correct. That is correct. That is correct. That is correct. Now, the whole process of getting elected to an office entails money, millions and millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, depending upon the office that you're seeking. And making yourself available to lobbyists whose primary function is to help corporations pimp the world.
Okay. Yes. And I would implore our audience watching to do some additional research with some of these facts that we've been able to present to you today. When you look at organizations such as Google, their largest client is our government. And the largest client is the client that is buying the most data and the most information about its users, and utilizing that particular platform for their own personal reasons. So when you look at these large corporations that are in Silicon Valley, you will notice that their largest clients and contracts are with our government. It's not a secret. Access to the contract is not a secret. It's just buried in jargon that we, the everyday average American, we don't understand that, right? That terminology we don't understand, but there's access to these documents. Some of it might be classified and might be blacked out, but you can read between the lines. You know, and it's up to you as an individual, like, to do that additional research. Like, I don't know how many times I have to say this. I say this on my own platform, and, you know, working with organizations and companies that are interested in diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you're not doing the extra research, like, you can't just expect someone to spoon feed you. You know, I say this too, like, as a Christian, like, you need to go open up your Bible for yourself. You can't have the pastor preach to you. Like, come on, like, it makes no sense. Go look it up, read about it. Formulate your own thoughts and your own ideas around it. That's how we stay abreast as a community, to combat these types of things in our own sphere. You can control your own sphere. You can't control what the world is doing. You can't control what the government is doing, but you can control how you operate in that. And I feel like a lot of people forget that piece. Like, it's as if you kind of give up your control. And I know where that comes from, right? That comes from the ideologies that we just talked about, the experimentation of taking people's minds and telling them what to think, and that herd mentality. But you need to wake up out of that, and you know, like, and have your own thoughts, formulate your own ideas. Don't harm anybody with them, because what we saw is, you know, the boy in Buffalo, he formulated his own ideas and ideologies, but they were not factual, and they were coupled with hatred, and they were coupled with harming other people. Now, if you find yourself going in that direction, you're on your own. Charlene did not tell you any of that. But if it's about uplifting people, encouraging people, and doing right by your community, I don't see anything wrong with that.
So we still have to deal with issues like mundane issues that comes from minor sources, but are still a pain in the behind. One of which is this what do they call it? Replacement.
The Great Replacement.
right. Help me, Lucy explain. Help me figure this one out.
All right, so guys, you know, anytime I'm on the show, I'm gonna provide you with some resources so you can go do some additional research. So according to immigrationforum.org, it's an immigration based services for people who are looking and seeking citizenship and green card holding, but they also do research about trends in America and globally as it pertains to immigration. So they started to talk about the Great Replacement Theory. So I'm going to read some of what they said the Great Replacement Theory is, and then me and you, Nat, will obviously react. So the Great Replacement Theory, right? This is in simple terms. We're going to give it to you in layman terms, right? It states that welcoming immigration policies, particularly those impacting non-white immigrants, right, are part of a plot designed to undermine or replace the political power and culture of white people living in Western countries. Now, furthermore, right, multiple iterations of this Great Replacement Theory continue to be used by anti-immigrant groups, white supremacists, and others. And they believe the rhetoric of invasion, which is a theory that's often used for martial and violent rhetoric of a migrant invasion that must be stopped before it conquers white America. And I mean, my emphasis is sincere because it might sound like mocking, but that's probably a little bit of what I want to do with this because I really don't believe in this, but I'm not going to do that right now. Forgive me, guys. Let me get back to being neutral. Voter replacement is another theory that is used, another iteration of the theory, excuse me. The theory also sometimes incorporates the inaccurate assumption that non-white immigrants will vote a certain way, and therefore pro-immigration policies are designed by elites to diminish the political influence of white Americans. And then we have anti-Semitism, which is another iteration of this theory, where it can be found embedded in a web of other xenophobic conspiracies, right? Including anti-Semitic notions that Jewish elites are responsible for the replacement plot, right? Now I'm going to give you guys one thing. Where did the Great Replacement Theory come from? Matter of fact, let me back up. Let's respond to that piece, and then perhaps we could talk a little bit about where it came from. I don't know, Nat. This is your show. My thing is like they believe this stuff, but we need to talk about where it came from so people can really see that like these ideologies are not true. They're not factual. But go ahead. I follow your lead, Nat.
No, this is your show. Go for it. Go for it.
Okay, so really quickly, guys, just to repeat, because I know you'll edit and stuff, but just to repeat, we have iterations of the Great Replacement Theory. So we know that it wants to undermine and replace the political power and culture of white people living in Western countries. And they believe that this is done through rhetoric of invasion, which means that immigrants will invade wherever white people dominate and conquer white America. And then voter replacement, that if we allow for immigrants to vote, they're going to vote in a way that would diminish their political influence. And then anti-Semitism, which obviously is saying that Jewish elites are responsible for this replacement plot. Now, where this came from. In 1973, a French author wrote a novel called The Camp of Saints, right? And it's an apocalyptic tale that attempts to depict the destruction of white Western society at the hands of mass immigration from the global South. So in the novel, right, it took hold of white supremacists and anti-immigration groups. Like they started to believe that this stuff was true. So much like 1984, the book 1984, a lot of people are like, oh, that's happening now. This book had the same type of influence on our white supremacist and anti-immigrant groups here in America in 1980s and the 1990s. Now, this book still remains a touchstone for prominent anti-immigration and white supremacists, such as Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon. Now, I don't actually know who Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon are, but putting that out there just in case there might be somebody in the audience who knows who these people are. Now you know you're subscribing to a rhetoric that was written in a book as a novel, and not necessarily true, nor can be proven with data and logical reasoning. So this great replacement theory is just another goalpost move of white supremacy, moving the goalpost every time, every time things start to move in a positive direction for equity from all people, white supremacy takes the goalpost and moves it. It's like, okay, no, it needs to be over here now. And I see the great replacement theory as one of those additional goalposts, right? And then white folks who subscribe to this, they're subscribing to this in a very violent way, because I personally feel like there has to be some type of cognitive dissonance that happens when you are presented with this information while knowing the truth. You have to have cognitive dissonance, and you had to have made a decision in that moment that I'm going to do away with the truth and I'm going to subscribe to this because this fuels my hate and I want to be in a hateful mode. That's why I said it's like, so for me, it's like clear cut and dry when it comes to this type of stuff. Like when people ask me, well, what do we do with, white folks? They're always like, well, we need training and we'd love to bring you on, but we're worried about the person that doesn't want to do it. I'm like, why are we wasting our time on people who don't want to subscribe to equity for everyone? Why are we wasting our time on people who don't want to ensure that people are living in safety? Why are we wasting our time on that? If the majority wants safety and equity, then we need safety and equity. We're not worried about this one guy over here who wants to be racist and is mad that a lot of Latino people are at his job. Leave then. If you don't like it, go. That's what we want. We want you to get out of here so that more people, no, seriously. I mean, not in a replacement way, but in a way, like if you don't want to be in a space where people love on each other, where cultures are different and people bring good food and dance and art and literature to the table. Do you know how beautiful and robust that is to be around people who have just like all these different ways to do things? Like it's such a beautiful place to be. Excuse me. If you don't want to be a part of that, we don't want you around either. So, I'm going on a tangent because
no, that's why I love having you with me, because you provide, remember you were putting on your lipstick and I was like, oh, I remember that, you provide a beauty to the equation that me, if left alone in my own psychosis, it just would not exist. There is a concept that and it's in the psychiatric psychologist community that psychopaths are born and sociopaths are created. Mm-hmm. That psychopaths are people who were just born and have no empathy from the day they were born, and there is no filter, whereas sociopaths were created by circumstance. And although they have limited capacity in terms of empathy, they do have some empathy for certain things. White people are sociopaths, not psychopaths. Mm-hmm. Because they can exhibit great love for other white folks, in mass. I mean, they have great love for their family, their country. It is not psychopathic tendencies. It's sociopathic. They're a little psycho when it comes to people of color. But other white folks, they can be quite tender.
Quite tender.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, niggas is quite tender.
Uh,
Oh,
I accept the fact that they say that see themselves as conquerors. And the only way you can displace a conqueror is to conquer them. So I am actually nightmare to the great
replacement theory.
Replacement theory.
You're like, let's
I
do
want
it.
to replace
Let's
that. Right.
See, I'm gonna say this. I hear you, but for me, I always think about living in a space like where we not a kumbaya. I am not trying to kumbaya, but I do want to live in a space where like you could be white, I could be black, and like we could just be cool, right? Like
Right.
you could do your white thing and have your little white festivities, and I could do my black thing and have my black festivities. And I don't have to feel afraid, and you don't have to feel afraid. Like there has to be a way, because we're no less American than they are.
Right.
And
right.
that's the piece that like just
And no less human.
right. Exactly. We're no less human, we're no less American, we're no less patriotic.
Right.
You know, we're no less like we those of us who love America or benefit from America, have families here, have legacies here. Like we love our country just as much as the next person.
Right.
And we bleed red blood.
Right.
We get sick too. We have loved ones and families.
Right.
Like we are human beings. And I'm glad that you brought that up though too, because in my trainings, when I train in DEI, I make it a point to really drive home that the white supremacy lens and the whiteness lens strips people of color from their humanity. And
Right.
that is a problem when you are not looking at someone as a human being just merely because of the way that they present. That's sick. It's a sick ideology that you need to unsubscribe to. Hit the unsubscribe button like you would do for any YouTube. You know what I mean? Just like it's that easy. It's really that easy. And I'm glad you brought that up. And I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I would love to live in a space where, I mean, you could be you and I could be me. We model the behavior here on the show, right? Like, I don't believe in everything you believe in. You don't believe in everything that I believe in.
Right.
But we're having a great conversation that other people can subscribe to, and it's fruitful, and we're laughing, we're having fun. And we don't have to agree on everything, but you're still a human. I respect you. I'm a human. You respect me. I don't see what the issue is for white folks that they choose not to do that, or for people of color who choose to hate their own kind. Like I'm very confused by all of that because I feel like I'm eons ahead of people because I'm not thinking that way. Like I can't think, I'm not going to subscribe to it. I don't care what anyone says. I'm not going to subscribe to hate. Just because you're a white person and you hate me, I'm not going to hate you. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to love you regardless. If you needed my help, I'm going to love you regardless. And I think that's what makes our community as Black folks super special, because no matter what happens, no matter what community comes up against us, because we are hated by multiple communities.
Right.
No matter what community comes up against us, we still love y'all.
Right.
That's why for Black folks, I mean, you Black too, but you want to do the great replacement theory. But for Black folks, like when they're like, oh, do you want to like eradicate whiteness or like not whiteness, the term, but white people? Like we're not looking at it from that perspective. It's like, no, I just want to exist and be safe and have a safe family and a safe existence. At least for some of us. I know some of us are super militant and like, you know,
well,
I subscribe to that too sometimes, but you know, just to get your point across. But literally at our core, it seems like the Black community, like if the Asians need help, we there for them. If the Latinos need help, we there for them. If the LGBTQ plus community need help, we there for them. Any marginalized community kind of gets traction off the love of the Black community.
Right.
And so it's like, if we could do that with them, and we know they hate us too, white folks, I mean, what did the feminist movement, all the white ladies went to the Black community and got the Black ladies to subscribe to the feminist movement. I mean, we was even willing to fight with them, against their men. And it's weird. It's just weird how we do that and people still turn around and cannot stand us for just being us. It's awkward.
First of all, let me get this out the way, cause I got yelled the old-fashioned American way, they raped my grandma, and great grandmama, I didn't get yelled, the Mariah Carey way. Okay. We have different conclusions about tactics. However, our end vision is the same.
Right.
I am not talking about replacing white people.
Of course.
I'm talking about replacing the system of white supremacy.
Yes.
When I say conquer it, and don't get me wrong, I've been voting since like before most people were even a concept, and I continue to vote, and I continue to support different legislations. However, I still maintain that ultimately we are going to have to prepare ourselves. We are going to have to get better at what we do. I need young Black men to take their ass back to school to learn to follow your dreams, not what other people ascribe to you as a dream, but your own legitimate dreams. Pursue them to the ultimate and go into the world and kick some butt.
Okay.
You
heard that, Black men?
Hey,
did you hear that?
That's right. That's right. So when I say I want I am replacement theory's nightmare, I am indeed talking about replacing the system of white supremacy. I'm not talking about killing all the whiteys I see. Okay.
Yes, of course not.
Okay.
And anyone who would think that, this is what I'm saying, anyone who thinks that and subscribes to that, I mean, I guess they have some sociopathic tendencies.
Right.
Any person operating in logic would know that that's not what people are trying to do. Right. But I get the fear, though. I get the fear because they know that their granddads and great-grandddads raped our moms and our grandmoms, and they know that they did it by force. So in their mind, force is the only way to do it.
Right. And you are a problem. Yes. Obama is a problem. I'm more of a sneaky Pete problem because I'm like, I'm like this ghetto
tender.
They're not really aware of yet, but you are right in their face, and you are this smart behind Negro woman. Obama was this smart behind Negro man, and he ended up the president of the United States. You are in their face. So you give them the heebie-jeebies more than I do. They are aware that I'm out there.
Right.
But you are at their dinner table. Okay. And you are getting seconds, and some of them are going hungry.
Right.
This is sociopathic behavior. This is not, like I said, they are not, I don't see them as psychopaths. I see them as created like we are created. Circumstance created our mindset, and circumstance created their mindset. And there are those people in very prominent positions who manipulate whole masses of people to get them to behave certain ways. Okay. I say we got to conquer white supremacy. You know, you talk much about the vision. I think we both still have the vision. I think, you know.
Yes. No, I want to conquer white supremacy as well. I mean, that's why I founded Imanaborena, because I was like, I can't make change in the system. I got to get outside of the system so that I can really take a macro look at what's happening, and I could try to do this one organization, one professional at a time, because the people who hold the power are the ones, like, there are systems, there are structures, there are policies, there are procedures, but there are people carrying them out. And more often than not, the people carrying them out are the ones upholding the white supremacy system. I mean, a lot of people just, I'm being direct as possible.
Well, that brings me to we've kind of touched on education, but there is one thing that you are infinitely equipped to address, and that is the issue of Black ownership and Black businesses.
Yes.
As always, the system, especially the financial and government entities, make it very, very difficult for Black ownership to spring up in any significant way.
Right.
Through redlining, through loans, bring in the pandemic, and Black businesses have been like decimated in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Address ownership, what it takes to establish a Black business, how difficult it is, and encourage us, enlighten us, you know.
Yes. I will say this, the actual paperwork that you have to put together to start your LLC, to start your C Corp, your S Corp, you have to figure out what type of business you'd like to have and how you want to incorporate yourself. The paperwork itself is fairly easy, which I found to be super interesting. The paperwork itself is fairly easy. Now, acquiring the accountant, making sure that you do your taxes every year, that type of information is a little bit harder to come by, because now you have to rely on another person to try to help you through that process. It's not as easy as filing your own taxes, you know, for yourself for TurboTax. But I will say this, Black-owned companies and organizations did take a decline, but are also simultaneously on the rise, right? There has been a push for organizations to provide funding and access to funding for Black-owned businesses in a cadre of industries. Now the problem becomes, how accessible is this information? And what I found is that this information is not as accessible as I personally would have liked. I had to dig and dig and dig to find these organizations that are providing these access benefits, that are providing grants, that are providing free assistance. I had to subscribe to websites and wait for them to tell me when these deadlines were going to be open. And more often than not, I found that the turnaround is super fast. So once again, the access piece is the issue, which is equity. And it is a result of us still operating in our inequitable systems and structures. But there is funding and there is funding and opportunity for organizations, for Black-owned or minority-owned or women-owned organizations. That takes me to the next piece. there is a tag, MWBE, which is minority or women-owned business entities, that you can get through the government. And what they did to provide more equitable opportunities for Black-owned or minority-owned or women-owned businesses is that now, if you have that tag, government-funded contracts are now more available to you. With that tag, they will pull your organization quicker. So there are band-aids that they're placing on some of the inequitable issues that we're seeing across the country when it comes to Black-owned, minority-owned, or women-owned businesses. But if you have access to this information, then it's easily available to you and you can move forward with it. The problem is the stratification of resources causes a lack of access for all minority-owned, Black-owned, or women-owned businesses, if that makes sense. Not if that makes sense. I hope that I was clear and articulate to you. I'm identifying issues while also sharing that there are resources out there for us.
Does lumping all of these things together ever create an imbalance in seeking resources for people like you, a Black female? When you lump when you say women and minority, right? When you lump all of those things together, does it ever create a situation where you find yourself in competition with those people who were marginalized, with white women or white gays, or I mean, how does that work in terms of trying to get funding and resources, and does it ever bite you on the butt?
So that's a really good question, and that's why I brought the stratification of resources up, right? Stratification is this ideology that there aren't enough resources, so we have to try to balance them out as best as we can, where what we find is that white folks have more access and people of color don't, right? So that stratification still happens. What I see is like there'll be, for every 10 grant opportunities for businesses just in general, there's like 3 for people of color. I personally get angry by that. This is my personal opinion, guys. I want to encourage you, if you are looking or seeking to open up an organization, a nonprofit, LLC, a S Corp, a C Corp, do your research, see which one you'd like, how you'd like to be incorporated, and go ahead and do it. It's super easy. LegalZoom does it for like $200. And they also have grants. They partner with the NBA, and they're giving out grants to people of color who are looking to, seeking to take their organizations to the next level. Like, these things are out there and it's easily accessible. My only qualm is I am a business owner. I just happen to be Black and a woman. I couldn't choose that. I didn't get to say, you know what, Mom and Dad, you know what, God, make me a white man. Like, I wasn't able to do that. And it just bothers me that we continue to think that these band-aids are helpful. They're not. What should be happening is that grant for that regular business should have a spread out 15%, 15%, you know what I mean? 50% this, 30% that, 20%. It should reflect the population that they serve. Their percentages of grants being given or funding or resources being given should directly reflect the population they serve. So if you serve 50% Black people, your grants should be going to 50% Black-owned businesses. Like, I don't need an additional grant that I need to apply for just because I'm Black. That piece I don't like. And so there is a increased competition that happens because if we're saying it's a minority-owned business and this is, or a woman-owned business, and these people are white or, you know, LGBTQ plus and white, that's not specifically for people of color, right? So we're kind of just back in the same pool when that original grant could have just had the percentages of the populations that you serve and you do it in an equitable way. So I'm like a catch-22. I also have found as well that I'm in the DEI industry. I'm in the industry of consulting and diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are a lot of consultants out there who I feel don't have the same issues that I'm facing. What I'm facing is there's a clash of ideologies when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And people are getting confused as to which way we're supposed to be approaching this problem. There are some people who say they're DEI practitioners, and it's just because they're Black or just because they're a person of color and they had some sort of life experience, they think that they could be a practitioner. And then there are others, such as myself, who has theoretical practice to back it up and understands terminology, understands frameworks, and understands execution of those things. So it's like, that's really where my competition is. It's like, what does the organization want to subscribe to? And then are they really looking to move this type of stuff forward? But nevertheless, I digress. I kind of went off on a tangent, sorry. In terms of our grants, it's kind of like a slap in the face sometimes, like when they're like, oh, Black people apply to this Black grant. But it's like, I'm a business owner. And if I walk out here and I tell someone I own a business and they say they have an entrepreneurial group, like I should be able to go, right? Like, but you're telling me I can't because I'm Black and I need to go to the Black entrepreneurial group. I mean, I know you scratching your head, but it bothers me. I don't like that. Maybe some people do. Maybe some people are like, you know, I'd rather be around people that look like me. I mean, it's fun to do affinity groups and things like that. But like, at the end of the day, I'm still a business owner. So I should be able to apply for any grant and not feel like the only grants that I can apply for are those that pertain to my intersectionality and my identity.
I think it's just white supremacy reinventing itself.
That's what I'm saying.
I also think that they should love you. They're probably scared to death of you, but I'm kind of jealous. They should be scared to death of me.
Oh, trust me, they probably are scared to death of you. Okay,
they should welcome you with open arms. You know?
they actually, what I get is at first it's like, oh, we love you, it's so great. You know, a lot of people, like I have a bubbly personality, so people, you know, they take to me fairly quickly. But when it's time to do work, that accountability piece, that is the piece that makes people like, it's too much. Like even my friends, you know, I love them dearly, but whenever it's really time for us to talk about issues and I bring up these tough topics and I'm operating in logic, they shut down. But I'm still going to be me because can't nobody put out my light.
No. One of the things that they do, and we're going to wrap this up. We've been on it. But one of the things they do, and when I brought up Heat of the Night and Endicott said something very interesting to Sidney Poitier. He said, the Negro is like epiphytic orchids. Just like the epiphytics, they need nurturing and care and culture. A lot of times, what is logical and evident to other logical minds, when looked at through the lens of white supremacy, what you get back is condescension, that Negroes don't really have analytical capacity like white folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure Negro women are perceived as somewhat less logical than uppity Negro men.
Yeah.
In any event, we're gonna close this out. I'm gonna leave you with that. We'll be back on this. There are so many things that we needed to touch on, but
Seriously.
we weren't able to.
Seriously. I love talking to you.
I love talking to you. I need to talk to you because, like I said, I can just go into my pit bull persona. You know?
I love it.
Close this out. I'm going to let you, as always, I want you to close this out because, like I said, I'm inelegant.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another 30 Frames a Second with our wonderful host, Nat Wood. Nat, once again, you are amazing. I love you, man. And I'm so thankful for this platform. We keep it real here, guys. We keep it real. The thing I'll leave you with is do your research. Don't take this stuff for gospel, like Nat said. Go ahead, read some books, read some articles. There's a plethora of information out there. And to anybody who's thinking about being an entrepreneur, you're trying to get your business up off the ground, do some more research, look for some grants, and get that paperwork done. Open up that bank account, and let's get it popping, man. We out here, okay? We're not gonna let this lens stop us. See you next week.